we never shy away from having robust and important debates on this show. Almost no topic is off limits, and today is no exception. Now, we all know COVID-19 has changed our lives forever. From intense lockdowns to being forced to wear masks, the pandemic is like nothing we've ever seen before. However, there are a small but passionate group of people in Australia who just don't believe it. They think that coronavirus is a hoax and the measures put in place to fight against it are illegal and corrupt. James Bartolo runs the Facebook group The Conscious Truth and calls himself a freedom fighter and truth seeker, and he joins us now. James, welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
G'day, welcome. Thanks for having me on board. How's everyone going?
We're all very well, James. We're very interested to hear what you've got to say. Tell me briefly, in your own words, why you have these beliefs and what some of them are.
Awesome. First of all, I just want to state that everything I say is just my personal opinion. I'm not an expert or at anything. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. So I want to get that message across. Everything I'm speaking is coming from my heart and my truth and my own personal research.
Sure.
So I like to research things thoroughly. I don't think it's very wise to blindly believe anything that you're told from anyone, no matter how trusted, if you haven't cross-referenced that information yourself at least numerous times and looked at both sides of the story. I think it is so critically important to look at alternate points of view, especially with what's happening today in this country and all around the world.
So James, which I totally agree with what you're saying there. So, but what are some of your actual specific beliefs that you've got, especially around, I guess, coronavirus, COVID-19, masks, that kind of thing? What are your beliefs there?
Okay, well, let's look at masks for an example. So my belief with masks is I've researched some very intelligent people, doctors, scientists, specialists, that show a very different story to what the mainstream pushes their agenda to the public. And that story is that breathing in recycled carbon dioxide in the mask isn't healthy. Breathing in, depending on the mask, what the materials are made of, breathing in those synthetics and plastics isn't going to be healthy. Constantly breathing in the mask, producing moisture in there, is going to create a breeding ground for bacteria, and that's not going to be healthy to breathe in. And viruses are so small that trying to use a mask to stop a virus from exiting that mask is like trying to stop a mosquito with a chain link fence. And look, this is just information I have found and cross-referenced, and I believe that to be true. And when I even look at Daniel Andrews himself, it was approximately 2 weeks ago, he came out in the news and said anyone wearing a mask is stupid. The World Health Organization made a statement saying that masks, the efficacy of masks isn't good enough for people to use, especially if you're just using basic cotton and cloth masks. Even Dr. Fauci in America said it's a ridiculous thing to be doing. But
James,
what concerns me...
Sorry,
is
I can't say that I remember those words being spoken by Dan Andrews, but let's say it was. Would you not agree that the narrative changes as the pandemic changes? And even if that was the advice, that you didn't need to wear masks at the time, that things do change. Sorry, do you live in Victoria?
I live in Victoria, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can I ask, there is now a mandatory, as of Sunday night, Dan, we were talking about this earlier, Dan Andrews is instigating a full, all Victorians must wear masks. I've got a couple of questions. Will you follow that directive?
No, and I love the use of your word there, directive. So that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand as well, is that a directive is not law. It is not law, so legally and lawfully, you do not have to follow that.
Although you will be fined for not wearing them.
It'll be an unlawful fine, and then that can be challenged.
So do you think the challenge would
actually,
win?
Yeah. Of course, yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the government's website as well, the Department of Health and Human Services, it actually says on there that you lawfully don't have to wear a mask if you have a medical exemption. And you don't need to produce a certificate upon requirement. Upon
Well, James,
request.
let's talk about the government there. You mentioned that you've said previously that Prime Minister Scott Morrison brought in the restrictions without consent of the population. But isn't that what elected officials do? They create laws, we vote them in, that's their job. Why is this any different?
Well, what's an interesting thing is that every act that's meant to be passed is meant to have a publication in the Australian Gazette. And from my belief and my research, I believe that hasn't been happening for at least the past 50 years. So that's meant to be an official government magazine, a gazette, that releases the information from every act that has been lawfully enacted in Parliament, so then the public can see that. And then if the public is disagreeing with what's happening, then they can change their vote in the next election because they don't like what the government is doing. But the thing is, the Gazette isn't existing anymore. All these acts that are coming through, there's no royal assent, there's no publication in the Australian Gazette, they don't have a certificate of proclamation, it's been enacted illegally and unlawfully.
But wait,
and
to
really
all the laws in the past 50 years
are
are not correct? All of the laws that have been passed are not right in the past 50 years?
Terminology is very important. From what I understand at this point, terminology is very important when it comes down to it. So they don't pass laws, they're passing legislation, statutes, acts, directives, rules.
But
like, as you said
law.
before,
it is common law, and it's the rule of the law we accept, and people are fined. And I don't believe for one moment that if you challenged any law in this country, that it would you would win that court battle by proving that we're not putting it in a gazette, because that we do have an understanding of common law and what is decided upon by our public, but that by our parliamentarians. But that's a whole other level. I'm sure we could speak for hours about that. I know Ben's keen to ask a question, but I just wanted to make that point because, you know, you could challenge a speeding fine based on that. You could challenge murdering someone based on that. You know, and they're not the laws that we live in. So, sorry, Ben, I'll let you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say there's no doubt in my mind that you are a highly intelligent man. And I just think, just imagine what you could do if you used your intelligence for good rather than to create sort of a line of dialogue in the media or amongst your friends with misinformation. I mean, I can totally understand where you're coming from, and logically the words and the terms and the way in which you're phrasing things, you know, can make sense. But the one thing that you're missing out on is that the government has decided that this is the way we're going to tackle this. And I honestly believe that your biggest issue is you don't like being told what to do. So, like, you're going to use every single trick in the book, being the most intelligent man that I can see right before me, to try and weasel out of just being told this is what has to happen.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I definitely don't like being told what to do. If I'm being told what to do by a leader, I'm honest. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. That's for sure.
I like your honesty.
The common law. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going to lie and try and scuttle around that. That's not very professional. So I'm going to be very authentic and honest with you. And I truly do believe, you can see my passion, that I am doing the right thing. And I'm trying to help as many people as possible by just asking them to think for themselves. I'm not telling anyone what to do.
But there's nothing wrong with being able to think for yourself. I mean, that's not the issue. I mean, I promote people to think for themselves all the time. And on this show all the time, I say, you know, every single situation that we find ourselves in needs a magnifying glass put over the top of it, and for us to think outside the box. I think that is definitely important. But don't you think it's dangerous to be telling people, you know, and using your intelligence to baffle people into doing the wrong thing?
What I think is dangerous is not knowing the difference between right and wrong, and not actually researching a specific topic that you feel you have an educated opinion about to say whether it's right or wrong. I don't think it's it's not a wise move to say something is wrong when you've only looked at one point of research and you haven't looked at all the alternate views and you haven't spent a long time researching that. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm saying think for yourselves. Here's an alternative point of view. You look into it. You do what you want, because as a free living man or woman on this earth, you should have that choice to have freedom and to make decisions based on your own intelligence.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I have to interject, fellas, and I know we are following a script, but I just have to interject here, James. Oh my goodness, a few things. First of all, the difference between right and wrong, I am sorry, but is not the right thing to do to try and protect our most vulnerable, whether that be old people, sick people. I'm getting so inflamed here, I'm actually physically shaking, James, so I'm going to try and keep it calm. So I don't see how you can sit here and talk about right versus wrong, firstly. Secondly, you talk about you don't have a medical degree and you tell people to go and do their own research. Here's the thing. Doctors, scientists, researchers, they have spent decades researching diseases like this, and unfortunately this is one that they have no answers for. So should we not, like we do when we visit a lawyer to do our legal things, or an accountant to do our tax, do we not turn to the people whose job it is and who have spent decades researching this to get the best advice? Isn't community?
100%. Yeah.
Doesn't that outweigh your selfish need to be cool and sit back? And I'm sorry, I'm not your mother, but if you were my son, I would tell you to straighten up, act a bit more, what's the word? You look like you're trying to sit there very coolly, like nothing phases you.
All right,
but I promise you, if your grandfather would have been nursing.
Let's have a listen to James.
I'm finishing my sentence, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, James, you've had a lot to say.
We're not here to bite and goad and discredit other people, are we? We're here to have a professional conversation. Let's keep it like that.
We are, absolutely, but I'm telling you that you look very arrogant in your stance. And what I am trying to say to you is, I actually need to ask you, what makes you think your rights as an individual outweigh that of society?
Behaviour on a professional radio station? I don't think it is. But I will answer that question anyway. With the research of doctors, 100% agree with what you're saying. And I've looked at professional doctors, Dr. Thomas Cohen, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, Dr. Rashid Buttar. There was a big press meeting in America yesterday that was aired with Breitbart Media. And there was about 10 different doctors there who were coming out and saying there are cures and how to treat COVID-19 and that it's nowhere near as dangerous as what the mainstream is saying. And do you know what happened to them? Censored, shut down. Why are these alternative points of views being shut down? If they're harmless, if it's totally wrong, allow people the freedom to make up their own mind, to consume that information, and then to choose what they want to do from there instead of being forced into a narrative that doesn't serve them.
But the problem is when individuals choose in this instance, they are potentially endangering the lives of others. And that's the point. Your stupidity and your right to do it. Don't leave your apartment if you don't want to wear a mask. Don't put other people at risk. If you want to make your decisions, you've got every right.
I'm not afraid of a virus. I'm not afraid of a virus that has a 0.0006% death rate in this country. If you're so afraid, call up a police officer and ask them to stand out front your door and to never allow you to leave anymore. If you're that afraid, because I'm not afraid.
Sorry, there were 10,000 deaths this week alone in America. Look at what happened in Italy.
That's America. We're in Australia.
Can I bring up something? A couple of things here. James, what you have to understand is that, and look, we absolutely agreed to a reasonable debate, and what I think
maybe I should opt out.
No, Joe. I think what we're seeing here is the passion that comes out, and there's passion on both sides. And James, no one is stopping you from talking. This interview is happening as it's happening, so no one's censoring you, no one's stopping you from talking. The thing I would say is that Joe is frustrated because this is something unprecedented. And look, I know you were making the point before about legalities and all that kind of stuff, but where does it reach the point where we have to trust those in power to do the right things? There have been mistakes. There is no doubt about that. Things should have been enacted faster. But when do we say we are all in this together? And when I see people going up and abusing staff at Bunnings, trying to make these points about mask wearing, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe the masks aren't the greatest thing for us, but it's something that the scientists are saying that helps. And I understand that you've got information saying that they're doing harm with what you're breathing in, but they're also stopping a spread. And if you look at what's going on, flu rates are down this year because of the measures we're taking. So maybe there is something in the social distancing, the mask wearing, it doesn't all need to be a fight based on what your actual beliefs are. As you rightly said, science you're not a scientist, I'm not a scientist, so I'm listening to the scientists, and I like to think I'm well read, and I'm here willing to believe what the experts are saying, and their views are possibly changing. What is wrong with that?
If it was so simple to just wear a mask, why didn't they know this information 2 weeks ago? Why were they fully discrediting it with their entire team of university scientists and doctors?
And research changes. They find new things. They find new answers.
It's in the year 2020 now. Surely by now they should know if wearing a mask is going to stop a contagious virus from spreading or not.
But
like this isn't the
James,
first
we
time
have
that
a second
disease has
wave.
gone around the world.
We have a second wave now, and the researchers and medical advice is now saying we didn't attack it strongly enough because it did get away with us. We almost did, but it did get away with us. So now we try and enact another measure and put something else that, God forbid, might help, might save some lives. And you talk about death rates in Australia. We've had our deadliest day today. I don't agree with you that it's not. If you watch the Four Corners report on what happened in Italy, I dare you to. You see those doctors working in those hospitals having to choose between this patient or this patient and whether to keep them alive. I implore you to please educate yourself a little further.
So it's very hard for me to follow the mainstream media because in Italy that footage has been used 3 times. That footage was used in Italy, it was used in America, and recently in Australia. They reused the footage, and it makes it very difficult for me to believe anything from the known statement of the
I really want to pick up on something like that. You're talking about the fact that 7 News used some of that footage from Italy, and that became a story because people called them out on that. That became a focus on Media Watch. I've spoken to people in the know, and you know what they said? We stuffed up. We have been working overtime trying to deliver information to people about this pandemic. Yeah. We stuffed up. It's not a conspiracy. Sometimes mistakes happen.
I kind of agree with James a little bit here, is that, yes, people can be tired and whatnot, but they were great pictures. So is it not a possibility that was also used? But you say you've got information. I understand that. James, going to go back to you.
Are you referring to the Four Corners report?
No, there was footage shown on 7 News that was passed off as footage from an Australian hospital that was actually in Italy. And
now I'm referring to the documentary that follows the body count in those first few weeks in the northern regions of Italy. And James, you saw the coffins, whether they were in Italy, that's because the outbreak got out of hand there. Yes, the population's different. There's a lot of diabetics, a lot of older people. But the point is that when something gets out of control, and that's what we're trying to stop here, and if masks do a little bit of that, why wouldn't you try?
So if in Italy every second person was crashing their car, would we say in Australia, well, Italy's car crash rate is through the roof. No one's allowed to drive cars in Australia now because we want to save lives and we want to protect people. Because a lot of people, do die on the road. That's fair enough. But anyway, Rob, you had a question.
Look, I think it's really... Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt everyone, but I was never going to get to speak if I just didn't get to ask this question. So sorry to interrupt with everyone. But I will say, I think we're not going to get anywhere in what you believe in regards to these masks. I think that's evident to me. And it's probably a little bit redundant of us to waste any more time trying to convince you on a show like this. But I would love to ask you, though, and that is that with these Karens that are out and about that are deliberately taking cameras out and provoking confrontation for the purpose of just getting a little bit of adoration, do you have an issue with those people? Because, I completely understand. I've got friends that are like you and that have the same opinion as you, but they certainly have a problem with these people out and about, looking for and conspiring for content just so they get their names out there. Does that not infuriate you?
That is a good question, Ben, and I respect that question. That's something I want to make a public video about very shortly. Because as I was talking about right and wrong before, I believe there is a right and a wrong way to do things. And I think what happened with the Bunnings incident and some of those other confrontations with just staff members of stores, I don't think they deserve that. To have a camera pulled out, it's very confrontational. And, they're not aware. You got to go about it the right way and just respect that these are just other people. You don't know how much information they know, what they don't. They're just following what the government's told us because they're afraid of getting these fines. So they're just doing their job and they don't want to lose their job. That's totally understandable. And I think if a company itself is saying, look, guys, this is our policy. You can't come in here without a mask. I'd respect that because that's their business. That's their business, and you just go
Absolutely.
somewhere else. Yeah. So I think we could definitely all agree on that.
Can
There's
I
a
ask
right way, a wrong way. You don't
one
want
quick final question?
I'm worried, Joe.
Joe, we're running
Just
out of time.
one quick one for you, James, because I really need to know this. Do you believe your rights as an individual outweigh the need for community needs? I just really want to know that. Do you think your rights outweigh what the community, what is best for the community?
I think all our rights are equal. Everyone's individual freedoms and rights is probably the most important thing, not when it puts the community at jeopardy. But as I've been saying this whole time, I don't think anything that we're doing is putting the community at jeopardy because we care about people. That's why we're pushing this message and saying, look at the alternate research on, say, masks, for example, because it's in my belief and a lot of other people and very intelligent people's belief, that's only going to make you more sick. That's why we're pushing this message so hard to help people. We understand people are afraid for their family, their friends, their loved ones, for their elderly. I don't want that. I don't want anyone to die before their time. Absolutely not. And I hope we're all in agreement on that because I want this country and every single person to live a healthy, prosperous and peaceful life for as long as possible. And if there's misinformation that's being directed their way that can harm and shorten their lifespan, that's not okay. I want them to be fully informed, to make a fully informed and consensual decision on what they would like to do.
Hang on a sec, but can't we have both? I mean, you can't honestly say that you're above the law because, I mean, that's what Joe's asking. That's just a simple question. Are you above the law? And no, you're not. But also, I absolutely applaud you in the sense that I love that you're keeping your eyes open. I love that you've got, you're using your heart, you're using your mind, and you honestly made some really sensible things there. But at the end of the day, when you said earlier that you would still leave the house without a mask, I mean, that's breaking the law. So I guess, are you above the law in that sense? And I'm certainly not taking away your right to have an opinion. And no one on the show is.
Absolutely. Yeah, no one is above the law. And as we mentioned earlier, the mandatory mask wearing is a directive and it's not actually the law. And I personally know I'm not going to be putting anyone in harm's way. If other people are afraid of the virus, as we said, don't go outside. You wear the mask, do your social distancing. I'm fully prepared to respect people's decisions if that, I'm too close or whatever. I know I'm not going to infect anyone else, but if they believe that, sure.
But will you respect a $200 fine? Are you going to pay the fine? That's all I want to know. Like, you're going to get a $200 fine.
No.
If the police see you, you'll get that fine. So, I just want to know, you're going to pay that fine?
No, because, that's going down another rabbit hole, but when you really get into it, the technicalities, that would actually be illegal. And I wouldn't be paying that.
I want to see what happens when you do that, James. I want to see where that goes if you get caught not wearing a mask and get fined and challenge that. Please keep us updated because that would be fascinating.
Well, when you look on the DHHS website, you don't have to wear a mask if you have a lawful excuse, and that's verbatim. If you have a medical exemption, you don't need to provide the reason.
You don't have a medical exemption.
Yeah, you've got to have that medical exemption.
How would you know?
You don't have a medical exemption.
Well, that's private intellectual property, and I don't consent to giving that out because
come back
who
to me
knows
when you've
what
got a medical
could have
degree,
happened.
James.
We want to see what happens.
All right,
Going a long time.
Wearing a mask, comes back to us, let us know.
Everyone, relax for the moment. I think it's very important that we have James on, that we have those kind of alternate views, that we can have this kind of debate around a very big issue that affects all of us. I don't think we certainly didn't get you on the show, James, to make you change your opinion or anything. We just wanted to hear what this other side and this I think we can all agree it's a growing number of people, not just here in Australia but around the world. I've got to say I don't agree with you, but I think in our discussions that's what we were talking about, is that it's important to have these kind of debates, especially when there are so many people who do in fact believe in what you're saying, whether that's right or wrong. So I think it's very important, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Robert. Definitely appreciate that too. And look, for me, no matter if we agree or disagree, I don't really care. I want you guys, everyone, to be healthy, be safe, be happy, live in peace, and enjoy your life. Whether we agree or disagree, you're never going to agree with everybody. You're never going to get everyone on your side, and that's perfectly fine. Absolutely. Just I appreciate coming on the show, having my chance to share my personal views and opinion, and the same for you guys to send it back to me. That's awesome. It's good that we can do that.
I think so. James, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
No worries. Cheers, Robbo. See you, mate. See you, Ben. See you, other Robbo and Joe.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you. Thanks for your time, mate.
See you guys, bye.
See ya.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo show.